All right, so everybody, thanks so much for listening to Fire Breathing Rob. Please like, subscribe, and share. And we really appreciate you listening, whether it's on the radio, on the podcast, or also if you're listening to us on YouTube. Thanks so much for that, too. We have Stephen Smith. Now, he was on the podcast when he was running for governor back in 2020 and lost a tight primary race. He also started West Virginia Can't Wait. He's an extreme progressive, and we're happy to have him back on. Stephen, thanks so much for coming back. Happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Rob. Nice to see you.
All right. So, Stephen, let's talk about this. Now, the run for governor, I was pumped up because I heard a lot of good things about you all over the media waves as far as progressive media. What do you feel like happened in that race in the primary?
Yeah, it was a huge triumph. Even though I didn't get more votes than our opponents, that was only ever going to be icing on the cake. We started the campaign from the very beginning saying it may take us years, it may take us a generation to win a people's government in West Virginia. What we have to have is a start. And in that primary, the headline was that I nearly lost to a more traditional Democrat in West Virginia. But the real story of what happened is that we recruited in that one election 101 pro-labor, no corporate cash candidates. 51 of them won their primaries. We now have 18 of those people in office. That's from 0 to 18 in 2 years. And so we look at that race as an enormous success in the project of building a people's government, even though I narrowly lost the gubernatorial primary.
How did it become such a Republican state, West Virginia?
Yeah, I think you can make an argument about what politics really is in West Virginia. That I think the national debate, national political folks look at everything in terms of red and blue. And in West Virginia, that's just not how we look at it, because for 150 years, we've been robbed from, and it didn't really matter what the letter was after the name, right? And so in West Virginia, if you're looking at it from the outside, it's like, oh my gosh, you were this huge blue state. Oh my gosh, now you're this huge red state. And they want to pigeonhole us, right? And talk about how we vote against our own interests and all of that foolishness. The way it looks from here on the ground is if you live in West Virginia, chances are your parents were better off than you were, and their parents were better off than they were, right? The jobs have gotten harder to get, harder to keep. Jobs pay less than they did. And this is a generational slide. And Democrats were in charge for most of your life. 82 straight years, Democrats had power. So it's not irrational. It's not voting against your own interests to look at 82 years of Democrats helping out-of-state corporations rob from you and say, well, maybe we can do better. And so what you really have in West Virginia is not a deeply blue or a deeply red state. What you have is a deeply anti-establishment state. And we think that's rational and healthy. And you've seen the voter rolls among independents and third parties dramatically increase over the last 20 or 30 years as it became clear, look, there's not a party for most people in West Virginia. That's the context in which we're organizing, where most people in West Virginia, most voters have given up on both political parties and are looking for something real and honest and accountable. And that's why, as we talked about before, we require all of our candidates to even apply for an endorsement. You have to reject corporate donations. You have to promise never to cross a picket line, never hide from a debate. And it's that kind of politics, something that's not so tied to national red team, blue team stuff, that is why we've been successful this far.
People really want a progressive agenda, and tap onto this because Bernie Sanders back in 2016 won every county in West Virginia. I think he would have probably done it again, obviously, if there wasn't the coronavirus and a lot of things happened in that campaign. But a lot of people on the Democratic side have really been pushing these Trump voters down and saying that they're racist, anti-Semitic, and some of them are. But a lot of them have just been hit so hard, like the people in West Virginia, where there's no jobs. You're going to make $7.25 an hour. They can't raise a family. They can't even, live in a house. So they're worried about those things, and they saw some hope with that anti-establishment Trump rhetoric. Do you agree with that? That the Democrats are really pushing these people down when they really want a progressive agenda in general?
I think that's largely true. I'm not going to sit here and speak on behalf of anybody who voted for Trump, because one of the only founding rule of our movement is that nobody gets to speak for anybody else, because we've had people speaking for West Virginians and coal miners for generations. But what I will tell you is that a lot of our leadership, a campaign that openly supported full cannabis legalization, broadband as a public utility, a massive jobs program, a massive attack on corruption and corporate crime. These were the things our campaign ran on. And a large percentage of our leadership are people who voted for President Trump or didn't vote at all. And what we found is that when you take politics out of the red versus blue national realm, where most people look at that and go, that's just a show. That's just a clown show where those in power want us fighting each other because you live in the city and I live in the suburbs, or you live in the suburbs and I live in a rural area, or you're white and I'm black, or you're Muslim and I'm Christian. That the powers that be in both parties are very good at getting us to fight one another in the working class. And what we found was that when we approached people, we didn't say, are you Democrat or Republican? We said, what matters most to you and your family? And then we could point to our platform, because it was written by West Virginians, and say, look here, that thing you just said, we're for that too. And we were bold on every issue. We weren't trying to not offend anybody or hide where we stood. We said, you know what? We're going to move $200 million a year from out-of-state corporations into the pockets of small business owners. We're going to pass the boldest pro-worker legislation in West Virginia history. That when we showed folks, look, this is a campaign about making all of our lives better, and we're not hiding, and here are the details, most people said, yeah, that's for me. And one of the things that was really interesting and that I think changed my perspective on stuff is that voters are smart, and they know they're not going to agree. We, the voters, know that we're not going to agree with any politician or any political platform on everything. And that one of the things that we did that was most effective is that we would tell people when we disagreed. We say, look, we're going to disagree on this issue. We're going to disagree on abortion, or we're going to disagree on the rights of transgender people. But I bet we can work together on cannabis legalization. I bet we can work together on fighting corruption. And what we found is that when we offer folks a chance for their lives to get better, all of these other issues about wagging our finger at somebody else's life start to fade into the background more. And that was a really powerful thing. It was a way for us to say, if you're here to fight about what somebody else is doing, then we can't help you. But if you're here to fight for your own family, chances are we can help. And that was a powerful, I think, corrective to a lot of what we see from traditional Democrats and Republicans, who are much more of the divide and conquer strategy.
I agree. Stephen Smith here, West Virginia Can't Wait. Definitely check it out. Stephen, I want to go into this because obviously this is a hot topic with national politics. I agree with everything you just said, but how can you push that when you have a person that's the leader of the Democratic Party, whether we like it or not, as far as the West Virginia Democratic Party, and Joe Manchin really standing against everything that you're arguing as far as West Virginia Can't Wait?
Yeah, well, I mean, from the beginning, West Virginia Can't Wait wasn't a partisan organization, and this is why, is that we didn't, we think it's more important to be accountable to the people of the state than to any one politician's whims or to any political organization or red jersey or blue jersey. And that's been true from the very beginning. We've supported Democrats, Republicans, independents, libertarians, Mountain Party people running for office. And we've been willing to challenge those in power, no matter what letter they have next to their name, if they're hurting poor and working class people. And, Senator Manchin, it's popular to talk about him right now because he's positioned himself in this way to be the deciding vote. But it's really nothing new in West Virginia. We've always had politicians who were far more accountable to the very wealthy in both parties than they are to the everyday West Virginian. And that's certainly true of Senator Manchin. So if you stop looking at him as an idealized version of a Democrat, whatever you think that ought to be, and start looking at him as someone who spent his entire career serving the very wealthy, it's pretty easy to see what he's doing, and it's not fooling anybody on the ground here.
I agree with that. But can you give the viewers a little bit of a mindset on Senator Manchin? Because, and I may get heat from this, but it does seem like he's running a crime family. I mean, we look at what his daughter did. Obviously that's not him, but he's in the same family with the EpiPens, making $13 million a year, and then really pushing those EpiPens. Obviously, his wife now has, and I think that was a carrot thrown to him by the Biden administration, a job as far as in the Biden administration. And then the master's degree from the college that didn't go through. They ended up shutting that college down. Millions of West Virginians that went to that college lost, basically their livelihoods because of that accreditation. A lot of these kids went to school and now their degree was worthless. And it was a total joke. It's really sad.
There's an old saying, right? Behind every great American fortune, there's a great crime. I think the thing that's most unique about Manchin is that he's not unique. He's not unique to West Virginia, and he's not unique to other places too. That all across the country, when we run politics the way we do, and we make it all about personalities, and we make it all about parties, and we make it all about sound bites, then this is what we get, is a politics where when someone wins office, their life gets better, their family's life gets better, and nothing much else changes. That's what the wealthy are relying on, right? Is the idea that, yeah, we're going to let these politicians play out this political drama and they'll get rewarded for it, and their friends and family will get rewarded for it, and nothing else will change. And I don't think that's unique to West Virginia or to the Democrats or to Manchin. You could say the same thing about our other senator, Shelley Moore Capito. And I think the thing that gives me hope is that most West Virginians know this, that it's actually only among the folks who are sort of politically plugged in and watching their cable news all the time who look at politics as this red versus blue game. Most people look at politics for what it is, a whole bunch of folks trying to scam the working class and the middle class and doing a very good job of it. And as long as we see ourselves as spectators of this national game, we will continue to lose. And as soon as we start seeing ourselves as the people who can dismantle the game and change the rules and start to play ourselves, then we have a little bit of hope. And that's just one thing I'd say to anyone who's listening. This only works if we work it. And if you're thinking maybe this is a time for you to run for office, or you want to support real on the ground organizing in West Virginia, or maybe you want to get organized in your workplace or neighborhood, today's the day to start. And I can guarantee that the people in power are not going to make your life better for you. But you have a shot, we have a shot together of doing it. And anyone who wants to be in touch, we're easy to find online. My email is steven@wvcantwait.com. We love hearing from folks all over the country who are similarly fed up with both political parties and are ready to take power in their own hands.
Stephen, I want to ask you this with the last few questions. What do you feel like Manchin's objective is on this? Is it just to make extra money? Is it to run for governor in 2024? Because my personal opinion is if he does go up for re-election for the U.S. Senate, I see Jim Justice running against him and Jim Justice beating him. So what is the objective you feel as far as Manchin with this?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I think you get into the realm of trying to figure out what these people want, and it's almost like that's playing their game, right? As long as we're sitting here wondering what they're going to do instead of getting busy trying to replace them, I'm much more interested in the latter. And so that's what we're up to this year. Is we're spending that time, instead of trying to read the Manchin Capito tea leaves, we're out here building town by town, county by county, local slates, running people for office up and down the ballot, running ballot initiatives. One of the things we just did last week that's really exciting. I'll share this because we want other people to steal the idea, is that we put out a job announcement. We're going to hire a governance director. I mentioned these 17, 18 people we now have in elected office in West Virginia. And these are people who have signed our pledge, run with us, or who are incumbents who are now pledging to run with us the next time they run. 18 people running actual elected office in West Virginia, we're going to have a full-time governance director who's going to help them out. Because if you're a working class person, you get into government, even if you have really good intentions, you can get swallowed up. So we're going to have a full-time staff person so that if you run and win, you're not going to be there by yourself. You've got an aide, someone you can ask for policy help or communications. And that's what we're after, is building that political machine that has enough power to threaten the political machines that are currently in power.
How do you feel like the Biden administration is as far as handling Joe Manchin? And do you believe in the end that these bills will get passed as far as this family infrastructure bill, which is definitely needed?
I honestly don't follow it that closely because what we've seen is that the only thing that moves Manchin or Capito, for that matter, is a direct local permanent threat, political threat. And we've seen that happen. It does happen every now and then, and that's what we're building. But we've not seen this sort of DC gamesmanship affect them because the National Democratic Party doesn't have much leverage in this case. So the leverage is going to come from long-term organizing and a direct local political threat. And so that's what we focus on. So I honestly don't follow it that close.
I think if the Democrats don't pass these bills, they're really going to get shellacked. I think they're already going to get shellacked because of a lot of things that they said as far as campaign promises that they haven't produced regardless. But let's go to West Virginia in 2022. There's two congressional races, obviously a lot of state house races and state senate races, and then with the governor's race back in 2024. Are you training progressive challenges to challenge these people that are running in the state house and the state senate?
Yeah, it's all we do all day, every day, is train people and support people who want to run or who want to run in slates. So we've got 3 places in West Virginia, 2 cities and 1 county where we're running slates of candidates in 2022 and building up the machine that can support them. And then we'll also offer our support to any candidate across the state who wants to run in 2022 so that they have the infrastructure, the volunteers, the training to be able to mount a decent campaign. And that slow chipping away, adding a few more elected officials each election cycle, that's how we're going to get there. The only thing I might say a little bit different is, and I know words mean different things in different places. We don't use the term progressive or liberal to define what we're doing because what we often see is that progressive is a term that is mostly owned by national political figures. And if we start with progressive, then we're starting with, well, you've got to believe a certain ideology if you want to be with us. And what we start with is what matters to you and your family. And what we've got is a platform written by West Virginians for West Virginians. And so the closest thing people have come to describing what we're doing is populist, meaning that it's rooted in the people of West Virginia. But mostly we try to stay away from the ideology altogether because the ideology we have is that the people who are closest to the problem are the ones who have the solution and not the people who are smart or the people who have the right set of ideas. And we try pretty hard to stick with that. So with that one caveat, all we're doing all day, every day is recruiting candidates and supporting them for election, whether it's 22 or 24. And mostly we're focused on local stuff, but when folks come along who want to and are able to challenge for a larger office, we're happy to support them too.
Who should we watch out for as far as 2022 and 2024 as far as running in West Virginia?
Watch out for city councils. I think that's going to be the most exciting thing is city councils and county commissions where we're putting together these local slates. We just did this in Morgantown, West Virginia. We ran 3 people and got 2 of them elected. One of them is the first formerly unsheltered person, formerly houseless person to ever win city council. The other is the first Latina to ever be elected Morgantown City Council, and we think the youngest as well. And they're just tearing it up. They're governing in a fundamentally different way, in doing participatory budgeting, pushing strong legislation and ordinances to back the local LGBTQ plus community, opposing rate hikes to utilities. I mean, it's just a fundamentally different way of governing. And we did that by going hyper local and betting on talented, hardworking folks who are sort of the opposite of who normally gets elected. And we're going to do that in a few other places in 2022. That's where we think the real energy is.
Last question for you again, Stephen Smith, West Virginia Can't Wait. Stephen, what is next for you? Looking at a race maybe down the line and running again, regardless of what it is?
Thanks for asking. The short answer is yes. We haven't decided what. And I think this is really important. So I appreciate you asking the question. I won't make this decision. I won't make this decision by myself. My family and I won't make this decision by ourselves. That one of the things we're trying to change is this idea of politics being a game, a waiting game of who's going to run when, and that it's a decision that resides with the candidate. What we're trying to do is run politics that's movement politics, where hundreds of people make a decision that big, and that's what we're doing. I mean, we've actually been doing a series. There's a small committee of folks here who have been out doing conversations with some of our members about 22 and 24, about who in our movement should run and what races should they run for. And we want those decisions, even decisions like that are so personal, to also be collective decisions, because that's how we exercise power in a fundamentally different way. So I am 100% open to run again. I loved being a candidate. And I'm mostly waiting to see from our leadership and volunteers and captains what they think makes sense and what would be most useful for our movement, for our organization. Maybe that means something in 2024. Maybe it means waiting 10 or 20 years. Maybe it means never running again. And I'm totally at peace with any of those outcomes. And excited to be part of a movement where I don't have to carry that burden by myself. None of our candidates do.
Where can people find more about West Virginia Can't Wait if they want to donate a couple of bucks, if they just want to find more about you in general, Stephen?
Sure. wvcantwait.com. That's it. That's been our website from the very beginning. Folks can make donations there. They can learn about our platform. You can get connected to me. And one last shout out I'll do is folks are welcome to reach out to me directly as well, Stephen at wvcantwait.com. But a shout out to Katie Lauer. It's nice being the person who gets a lot of credit as the founder or leader of this organization or movement. But the real architect of West Virginia Can't Wait is Katie, who is a campaign manager in the gubernatorial and is now my co-chair and the smartest organizer in the United States. So shout out to her, and folks who should check out on Medium. She's been doing a series of articles as well about the campaign we ran, and including sharing like materials and how-tos and stuff like that. She's a brilliant writer and organizer, and folks who want to learn more about what we're doing, that's the best place to start.
Stephen Smith, again, West Virginia Can't Wait. Thanks so much.
Appreciate your